According to a senior intelligence official, Al-Qaeda is an organization that today is very much in disarray.
الخنزير صار له 15 نهار وهنول ما لهم متعرفين عليه الكلاب.
We do not differentiate between those dressed in military uniforms and civilians. They are all targets.
Oh my God!
And we need to get out. He declared war on America.
A mastermind, perhaps. Osama Bin Laden, a name that became synonymous with terrorism and extremism, was born on March 10, 1957, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. His father, Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, was a wealthy businessman who had emigrated from Yemen to Saudi Arabia.
I think they're also trying to show that he's human, that he's vain, that he makes mistakes.
هذه طائرات النظام الذي كانت تلقي الصواريخ على
He had to take cues or missed a cue when he was starting a tape. He was watching Al Jazeera.
Osama was raised in a conservative Muslim family, where his father played a significant role in instilling religious and traditional values in him. As a young boy, Osama attended Al Thagr Model School in Jeddah, where he received a traditional Islamic education. He went on to study economics and business administration at King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. During this period, he witnessed a region dominated by Western powers like Britain, France, and the US, who were increasing their involvement in Middle Eastern affairs. He also witnessed Israel's conflicts with its Muslim neighbors,
finding any, quote, actionable intelligence that could be putting the U.S. or its allies at risk.
Including the Six-Day War in 1967 and the Yom Kippur War in 1973, which had a profound impact on his worldview. These events fueled his growing resentment towards the Western powers and Israel, and he began to perceive them as a threat to the Muslim world. Bin Laden's views were further radicalized when he became involved in the Afghan war against the Soviet Union. He saw the success of the Mujahideen and the Taliban in resisting a foreign occupation as a model for Muslim resistance against Western powers. This experience cemented his belief that violence was the only way to achieve political change.
يشيلوا يعني أعباء الجهاد في الجيل القادم والمراحل القادمة يقود الأمة يقود الجهاد.
الخنزير صار له 15 نهار وهنول ما لهم متعرفين عليه الكلاب.
Political and religious influences. The 1970s were a transformative period for the Middle East, with significant political and religious developments that played a crucial role in shaping Osama bin Laden's worldview. One such event was the Islamic Revolution in Iran, led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, which toppled the monarchy and established an Islamic republic. The revolution's success galvanized Islamists worldwide and served as a beacon of hope for those seeking to establish Islamic states. Another significant event was the Marxist People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, seizing power in Afghanistan and implementing socialist policies, which went against the deeply held religious beliefs of many Afghans. The Soviet Union had ties with the PDPA, and as a result, the country became a battleground between the Soviet Union and Islamic fundamentalists, with the latter being supported by the U.S.
According to a senior intelligence official, Al-Qaeda is an organization that today is very much in disarray.
And I said, did he answer any of the questions? And he said, we need to get the tapes.
These events were critical in shaping bin Laden's worldview, particularly his belief in the need to establish Islamic states and resist foreign interference in Muslim lands. He saw the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan as a threat to Islam and became a key player in the resistance movement against the Soviet Union. These experiences would later inform his decision to form Al-Qaeda, an organization committed to waging jihad against the West and establishing Islamic states. Involvement in Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden's arrival in Afghanistan in 1979 marked a turning point in his life. It was there that he met Abdullah Azzam, a Palestinian-born jihadist, who would become a significant influence on him and many other senior Islamic terrorists. Azzam was a renowned Islamic scholar and a strong advocate of the jihad, the Islamic concept of struggle or holy war against non-believers. Under Azzam's guidance, Bin Laden became increasingly committed to the cause of jihad and joined the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan, who were resisting the Soviet invasion. Azam's teachings and his personal charisma had a profound impact on Bin Laden, who saw the Afghan war as a critical battlefront in the struggle against the West and its allies. Bin Laden's participation in the Afghan jihad was a turning point in his life, as he developed a reputation as a skilled and charismatic leader. He established close ties with various Islamic groups and leaders from around the world, including Ayman al-Zawahiri, who would later become his deputy in al-Qaeda. The Soviet-Afghan War. The 1980s marked a decade of intense conflict in Afghanistan as the Soviet Union launched a campaign to suppress the Mujahideen insurgency. The war was marked by extreme brutality, with the Soviet Union using tactics like carpet explosions, landmines, and chemical weapons to try to defeat the Afghan resistance. The conflict resulted in the displacement of millions of Afghans and the passing away of hundreds of thousands of people, making it one of the most fatal conflicts of the Cold War. The Soviet Union's failure to quell the insurgency and the mounting casualties it suffered led many to compare the conflict to the United States Vietnam War. It was during this tumultuous period that Osama bin Laden established Maktab al-Qidamat.
Bin Laden comes across the field, and we step like 3 steps down into this hut. He sat down on this kind of bench covered in red fabric and put a blanket.
وسبعد من هذه النقطة 900 متر. عن النقاط الأولى. عن النقاط الأولى في عندنا النقاط يعني 250.
An organization that provided financial, logistical, and ideological support to the Afghan resistance. The group played a critical role in the Afghan war and helped lay the groundwork for the jihadist movement that would emerge in the years to come. Mac's success in Afghanistan made bin Laden a revered figure among jihadists worldwide, and he began to articulate a vision for a global jihad against the West and its allies. He believed that the Afghan conflict had demonstrated the power of a decentralized, non-state actor to take on a superpower, and that this model could be applied to other conflicts around the world. The formation of al-Qaeda. As the war in Afghanistan came to an end in the late 1980s, bin Laden and other jihadists began to consider the future of their movement.
Dug into the ground. Inside it looks like a cave because the walls are uneven.
في كمان هون جثث كثيرة.
And we need to get out. He declared war on America.
نرصد حركة الأعداء الموجودة هنا في هذه المنطقة وهذه ذخيرتهم التي لم تنفعهم.
In 1988, al-Qaeda was established with the goal of continuing the struggle for Islamic rule across the Muslim world. The group's primary focus was on fighting against what they perceived as Western imperialism, and they adopted terrorist tactics to achieve their goals. Return to Saudi Arabia and growing tensions. After the Soviet-Afghan War, bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia, where he was hailed as a hero. He began working with his family's business, the Saudi bin Laden Group, and tried to leverage its resources to support al-Qaeda. However, his relationship with the Saudi government and other Middle Eastern countries began to deteriorate. This was due in part to the presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia during Operation Desert Storm and the US-led invasion of Iraq in the early 1990s. Expulsion from Saudi Arabia and relocation. In 1991, bin Laden was expelled from Saudi Arabia due to his increasingly hostile stance towards the Saudi government and the US. He found refuge in Sudan, where he established a new base of operations for al-Qaeda. During his time in Sudan, bin Laden worked to build up the organization's infrastructure and capabilities, while also forging alliances with other militant Islamic groups. Expulsion from Sudan and return. In 1996, under pressure from the US and Saudi Arabia, the Sudanese government asked bin Laden to leave the country. He returned to Afghanistan, which had become a fractured and unstable nation following the Soviet-Afghan War.
Kind of over his knee. It was like sitting at story time with an old uncle.
We do not differentiate between those dressed in military uniforms and civilians. They are all targets.
Bin Laden was welcomed by the Taliban, an extremist Islamic group that had taken control of most of Afghanistan. Under the protection of the Taliban, bin Laden continued to expand al-Qaeda's operations and plan attacks against the US and its allies. The September 11th attacks. On September 11, 2001, al-Qaeda launched a series of coordinated attacks against the US. Hijackers took control of 4 commercial airlines, crashing 2 into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, 1 into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C.,
That apparently does look like it is in the other building at this point.
and another into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers attempted to retake control of the plane. The attacks slayed nearly 3,000 people and caused significant damage to the U.S. economy and psyche. The U.S. War on Terror. In response to the September 11th attacks, the U.S. launched the War on Terror, an international military campaign aimed at dismantling al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan in October 2001 with the goal of overthrowing the Taliban and capturing or slaying bin Laden. Despite years of searching and numerous false leads, bin Laden remained elusive. Life in hiding. Following the September 11th attacks, bin Laden went into hiding, moving between various safe houses in Pakistan and Afghanistan. He continued to issue statements and recordings, promoting his extremist views and calling for further attacks against the U.S. and its allies. The demise of Osama Bin Laden. On May 2, 2011, U.S. Navy SEALs conducted a raid on a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, where bin Laden was believed to be hiding. During the operation, bin Laden was slayed, marking the end of a decade-long manhunt. His body was buried at sea within 24 hours in accordance with Islamic tradition. Legacy and impact. The demise of Osama bin Laden marked a significant milestone in the War on Terror. However, his influence on global terrorism and Islamic extremism continues to be felt today. The rise of new terrorist organizations such as ISIS can be traced back to the ideological and organizational foundations laid by bin Laden and al-Qaeda. His actions and beliefs continue to shape the world's understanding of terrorism and the challenges posed by extremist ideologies. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.